you went through a lot. It's been well documented. People would say it's even controversial, but for those of us who've actually put the uniform on, we know the mental struggle, especially when you're getting out. I think it's
Yeah.
criminally underreported. It's criminally not looked at, where you go from an environment where you're surrounded by people who are all about giving. And now you're dropped off in society where it's like, hey, I got mine, you better get yours. And like I said, I retired as an '05, a commander, and it was a struggle my first year out of uniform. T- Take me on the journey back. I don't care about the tattoos and the Reddit stuff. That's been addressed. How did you get back?
It took me a long time. I mean, I got out in 12, and between 2012 and really 2017, I struggled with the exact
Mm-hmm.
same things you just talked about. I felt isolated. I felt alone. I went from a world in which like I was like a competent infantryman whose job it was to take care of the younger infantrymen below me.
Mm-hmm.
It had nothing to do with me in many ways. Like my competence and my skill set was there to make sure that my younger infantrymen could stay alive and could be effective in their mission. And then all of a sudden, you go from this world where everything's about the team, everything's about the group, everything's communal. You have this intense feeling of loyalty and support to suddenly just being on your own in a society that, as you just mentioned, doesn't really prioritize community in any way. It's a society that is all about like you got to get yours, you got to kind of get ahead of other people, and so you're dealing with all of that. You're losing the support network, you're losing the structure. I mean, that was a big one for me. I went from a very structured world to a world where I was just in charge of my own life, and I'm like I wasn't really prepared for that.
Mm-hmm.
When you make decisions, you're the only one that suffers. And it's in some ways, when you're living in a space in which you feel very alienated and alone, you don't care if you're the only one that suffers. You're like, well, what does it matter? It's just like you lose this feeling of, I mean, at least I did. I lost this
Mm-hmm.
feeling that anything really mattered.
Yep,
And
exactly.
and for about 5 years, I kind of lived in that hole. And the thing that got me back was rebuilding actual community in the real world. The thing that got me back is I moved home. I moved back to Maine. I moved back to the town that I grew up in. I got involved in shellfish farming, which is a very communal industry. There's a lot of cooperation. Everybody kind of talks to each other. There's a real feeling of community around that. There's a lot of like regulatory stuff where you're like interacting with other farmers, interacting with other people in the state. And then I also just got very involved in my small town because I grew up in a town of about 1,000 people. And
Mm.
I got involved. I was on the planning board. I became the harbor master. I got involved in a lot of community organizing work, kind of just showing up for neighbors who were struggling. And it wasn't on purpose, but it was through that direct connection with people that all of my cynicism and anger, all of my feelings of isolation and loneliness, it all disappeared. And part of it came with going to therapy and getting support from the
Mm-hmm.
VA. There's no question that had a lot to do with it. But that combined with becoming engaged with people in my community again, those two things, I mean, that was it. That did all the work.
Mm. I'm glad you brought up the VA. You've been very vocal about what's happening to the VA, because you literally just showed us how you lived through that transition. What concerns you most looking at the VA and what's happening right now?
I mean, I was talking to somebody at the VA just a few weeks ago because I was up there for an appointment, and the staff cuts, major budget cuts, and then also they're using they're taking things that used to be job positions and turning them into billets so they can get away with saying that we're not getting rid of these positions, but in reality, something that used to be filled by like a provider is now being filled by like a support staff person. And everybody knows that the whole point is that the job is no longer being done. But it's a trick.
Yes.
So, that is terrifying to me because I've had a great experience with the VA up here in Maine. Only in the
Mm-hmm.
last year has my level of care begun to diminish. And it's
Mm.
very obviously because they're understrength and they're underfunded.
Mm.
And they know it. The VA staff they know what's going on. And that terrifies me because honestly, the VA was not in a position to have resources decreased. We needed to
Right.
be increasing resources and manpower to the VA as it was. And so to
Mm-hmm.
watch that happen in real time as the Trump administration, as Republican policies strip it of funding and manpower, it's incredible. To say it's concerning is an understatement. It's the future of veteran care is at risk right now. And that is a terrifying prospect.